My friends, let me paint you a picture. Imagine it's the 1970s. You're in a Tehran nightclub. The lights are low, the music is loud, and the vibe, pure disco. Sitting at one table is an Iranian diplomat sipping tea. Across from him, an Israeli military advisor talking about security cooperation. Yeah, you heard that right. Iran and Israel, allies. Not kinda, not maybe, straight up partners. But if you told someone that today, they'd probably laugh or roll their eyes or yell propaganda. So how did we go from that strange buddy cop scenario to today's mutual threats, missile strikes, and apocalyptic rhetoric? Let's rewind even further back, not to the 70s, but to the very beginning. In 1948, when Israel declared independence, most of the Arab world was foaming at the mouth. Cairo, Damascus, Baghdad all declared Israel an illegitimate state. War followed, boycotts, embargoes, but Iran made a different move. It became the second Muslim majority country to recognize Israel, quietly, without fanfare, but unmistakably. Why? Because Iran didn't see itself as part of the Arab world's anti-Zionist front. It saw itself as Persian, imperial, and better than the Arabs to the west in its own eyes. And under Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, that mindset was gospel. The Shah wasn't religious, he wasn't populist, he was a king with oil money, American backing, and a vision of turning Iran into a modern, westernized superpower. And to him, Israel was a model, scrappy, Western aligned, surrounded by enemies, yet punching above its weight. But it wasn't just ideological alignment. The Cold War made strange bedfellows, and both Iran and Israel were part of the US-backed anti-Soviet firewall across the Middle East. While the Arab states flirted with Moscow, Iran and Israel linked arms, one a monarchy, the other a democracy, both armed to the teeth by Washington. In intelligence circles, the partnership was legendary. Mossad and Savak, the Israeli and Iranian intelligence agencies, they shared everything from surveillance tips to interrogation techniques. And it got even weirder. In the late 1970s, they launched a joint missile development program called Project Flower. Iranian oil money funded it, Israeli engineers designed it. The goal? Build a next-gen missile that could outpace anything the Arabs or Soviets were working on. Meanwhile, Israeli agricultural experts were training Iranian farmers. Direct flights to Tehran, diplomats dined together, cultural exchanges happened under the radar. Iranian Jews traveled freely. Israeli tech was embedded in Iran's military infrastructure. It wasn't love, but it was one hell of a marriage of convenience. That's why even after the revolution, when the Shah was long gone and Khomeini was shouting death to Israel, former Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin still said in 1987, Iran is Israel's best friend. Let that sink in. This wasn't just a blip in history, it was decades of covert cooperation, oil deals, arm trades, and mutual enemies. Now let's jump to the Islamic Revolution. The Shah was booted. Ayatollah Khomeini walked in, and with him came an entirely new political transformation. Gone was the secular nationalism. In came political Islam, Sharia law, anti-Western slogans, and yes, a certain obsession with Israel. Let's be honest, Khomeini didn't just dislike Israel. He famously called it Little Satan, the Western beachhead in the Middle East. For him, hating Israel wasn't just strategy, it was theology, ideology, and destiny. This wasn't just about religion or emotion. There was real politics buried underneath all that anti-Zionist fire. Here's the thing. The new Islamic Republic was isolated. No more American backing. Arab neighbors were suspicious. Iran was broke, paranoid, and looking to rally allies. So what better way to rally Muslim credibility than by picking a common enemy? Israel. And they played the long game. Instead of picking fights head-on, they started investing in proxies. Enter Hezbollah in Lebanon, Islamic Jihad in Palestine, militias in Syria and Iraq. Through them, Iran got within striking distance of Israel, literally and metaphorically. Meanwhile, Israel watching Iran's growing influence was like seeing someone fill your swimming pool with gasoline. By the 1990s and 2000s, Israel wasn't just worried, it was actively trying to isolate Iran on the world stage. Politically, militarily, economically. It lobbied Washington, it warned Europe about Tehran's nuclear ambitions, and it quietly backs cyber attacks and covert operations to sabotage Iranian scientists and their enrichment facilities. But here's the kicker. This whole rivalry, this secret war, wasn't always inevitable. It was geopolitics, not just ideology, that drove this wedge. Iran and Israel were strategic partners when it made sense. And when the Cold War ended and the regional chessboard shifted, so did the alliances. What we're witnessing now, missile strikes, cyber warfare, assassination campaigns, diplomatic backstabbings, is the continuation of that 46-year secret war. A rivalry born from fear, ego, and ambition, wrapped in ideology, fueled by history, and let's not forget the people of Iran, they're not always on board with this conflict. You'll find Iranian Jews in Tehran still going to synagogues, Iranian protesters waving Israeli flags in defiance of their regimes. The animosity? It's mostly up top. 9. Iran goes full revolution mode. Khomeini's beard is flowing, the Shah is exiled, and suddenly, Tehran's favorite drink isn't tea, it's anti-Zionism Molotov cocktails. But let's be real, Iran didn't just wake up one day and go, you know what, let's hate Israel now. No, this wasn't a spiritual epiphany. It was a strategic pivot. And the biggest weapon Iran found to legitimize its new regime and flex in the region? Yeah, Palestine. Because if you want to win hearts and minds in the Arab world, just shout "Free Palestine" 3 times and poof, you're suddenly everybody's hero. And that's exactly what Iran did. See, after the revolution, Iran was isolated. No US, no Europe, and no love from the Sunni Arab states. Iraq literally invaded them the following year. Not exactly a welcoming party. So Khomeini needed a way to unite the fragmented Muslim world. And what better way than latching onto the most emotionally charged issue in the Middle East? The new Iranian leadership strategically used the Palestinian issue to unite the Muslim world. Iran became louder than even the Arabs on this topic. They went full PR campaign. Death to Israel wasn't just a slogan, it was policy. They established Quds Day, an annual event dedicated to protesting Israel. It's basically Burning Man, except the only thing they're burning is Israeli and American flags. Now, here's the twist. Iran doesn't even consider itself Arab. And the Palestinians? Mostly Sunni. But did that stop Iran? Nope. They bankrolled, trained, and armed any group willing to chant the right slogans and fire the right rockets. Enter Hezbollah. This wasn't just a militia. It was Iran's greatest foreign policy success story. Born in the chaos of the Lebanese civil war, Hezbollah became Iran's proxy hammer against Israel in the north. And let's just say they didn't hold back. By the 2000s, Hezbollah had tens of thousands of rockets aimed at Israel. They weren't just a group, they were a state within a state fueled by Iranian cash and ideology. Quick stat check. Between 2006 and 2023, Hezbollah launched over 4,000 rockets during just one war alone. Iran funneled an estimated $700 million annually to Hezbollah. Hezbollah is now considered stronger than the Lebanese army, but it doesn't stop at Lebanon. Iran also supported Palestinian Islamic Jihad, a Sunni group. Hamas, despite being Sunni and having theological beef with Shia Islam. Israel obviously noticed. It launched airstrikes in Syria to prevent weapons transfers. It assassinated Iranian scientists. It engaged in the campaign between the wars. This is a doctrine aimed at bleeding Iran's proxies without triggering a full-scale war. Every time Israel pushed, Iran got bolder. Not necessarily stronger, but louder. And that's when the nuclear card game came into play. So Iran began enriching uranium, slowly at first, then more aggressively. Israel saw it as an existential threat. Iran framed it as deterrence. And the rest of us, we got stuck watching a high-stakes poker match where everyone's bluffing, with nukes. Let me break it down with some cold numbers. As of 2025, Iran has enriched over 275 kilograms of uranium to 60% purity, which is far beyond the 3.67% cap set by the 2015 Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. That's dangerously close to weapons grade. Now, experts estimate Iran's nuclear breakout time is now measured in days. Israel has an estimated 90 to 400 nuclear weapons, but they won't confirm or deny this because ambiguity is the best in this situation. This isn't just a regional rivalry anymore. It's an existential chess match. Iran says, we'll back the resistance. Israel says, we'll bomb your reactors. You know what Iran fears more than Israel? An Israeli-Saudi alliance. Because that isolates Tehran completely. Which is why every time there's progress between Israel and Arab states, Iran goes into full saboteur mode. Rockets fly, militias rise, and just like that, headlines shift back to war. And for Israel, stuck in the middle of it, the stakes are no less existential. Got Iran backing Hezbollah and Hamas, Israel launching secret missions, and the Palestinian cause being passed around like a hot political potato that everyone wants to hold just long enough to look concerned, but not long enough to get burned. But all of that was just foreplay. Because what really terrifies Israel, what truly keeps Mossad analysts up at night, is this: Iran with a nuclear bomb. Let's not sugarcoat it. Israel sees nuclear Iran as an existential threat. Not a we might lose a war threat, but a we might not exist anymore type of threat. And when you're a country that was founded in the ashes of the Holocaust, you don't take existential threats lightly. And here's the bonus. Israel has nuclear weapons, a lot of them. They won't admit it, but it's the worst kept secret since your cousin's crypto investments. Now, Golda Meir, who had balls of steel, once said, "We don't have nuclear weapons, but we will use them if we have to." Estimates say Israel has anywhere from 90 to 400 nukes, including second strike capabilities on submarines, meaning if you hit them, they'll hit back, and even from underwater. So why is Israel freaking out? Because deterrence only works if both sides are rational. And Israel's whole pitch to the world is Iran isn't rational. That's the argument. That if Iran gets the bomb, it won't be like the Cold War with mutually assured destruction keeping everyone in check. No. According to Israel, Iran's leadership might actually use it. Now, is that true? Well, that depends on who you ask. Some Western analysts and a lot of Israeli officials paint the Iranian regime as messianic and suicidal. They say Iran believes in martyrdom, apocalypse, and the return of the Mahdi, the Islamic version of the Messiah, that they'd rather bring on the end times than live under Zionist domination. Sounds pretty insane, right? But here's the twist. Iran has shown a long track record of cold, brutal realism. They talk big, but in action, they calculate. They back down when outgunned. They avoid direct wars, and they've consistently used proxies instead of going full kamikaze. Even former Israeli Mossad chiefs like Mir Dagan have admitted the Iranian regime is rational. So maybe the nuke isn't about apocalypse. Maybe for Iran, it's about insurance. The North Korea playbook. Get a bomb, and suddenly, no one invades you. Just ask Saddam how he worked out without one. And yet, Israel can't afford to take that gamble, which brings us to the JCPOA, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, aka the Iran nuclear deal, signed in 2015 between Iran and the P5+1, that's the US, UK, France, Russia, China, and Germany, also known as the Big Kids Table. The deal was simple. Iran limits uranium enrichment to 3.67%, well below weapons grade, reduces its stockpile, and allows intense international inspections. In return, sanctions relief, oil exports back on the market, billions in frozen assets unlocked. Sounds decent, right? Diplomacy doing its thing. Then, in 2018, the Trump administration walked away from the deal, unilaterally, with a mic drop. Sanctions came roaring back. Iran's economy tanked, but instead of collapsing, Iran hit nuclear beast mode. Some numbers for you. Pre-deal, Iran had enriched no uranium above 20%. Post-US withdrawal, they reached 60% purity. 90% is weapons grade. They're right there. And as of 2025, Iran has enough 60% enriched uranium for 6 nuclear bombs. It further refined. So now, Israel's worst nightmare isn't just a possibility, it's a timeline. Meanwhile, the Biden administration tried to revive the deal. Talks in Vienna, shuttle diplomacy, but guess what? Distrust runs deeper. Iran wants guarantees the US won't just back out again if another president takes office. The US can't promise that. The Senate won't ratify it. Israel keeps lobbying to kill the talks, and so we're stuck. Even now, backchannel diplomacy flickers. Oman hosts secret meetings, Western negotiators float proposals, Iran demands sanctions relief, Israel whispers, one more centrifuge and we're bombing Natanz. And all the while, the shadow war continues. Cyber attacks, assassinations, mysterious explosions at Iranian missile sites, Iranian drones flying into Israeli airspace, and Mossad playing whack-a-mole with nuclear scientists. Iran and Israel aren't just fighting on accent at UN meetings, they've been locked in a shadow war for decades. A war of covert strikes, sabotage missions, cyber attacks, and assassinations. Let's start with Iran's nuclear scientists. Over the past 15 years, a mysterious wave of car bombs, magnetic explosives, and motorbike drive-bys have taken out multiple key figures in Iran's nuclear program. Let me go ahead and butcher these names. We're talking about Masoud Ali Mohammadi, killed in 2010 by a bomb rigged to a motorbike. Majid Shahriari, killed in 2010 as well, same method. Mustafa Ahmadi Roshan, blown up in 2012 during morning rush hour. And most famously, Mohsen Adeh, in 2020, gunned down near Tehran by what Iran claims was a remote-controlled AI machine gun operated from another country. Seriously, what is this, Metal Gear Solid? No country officially took responsibility, but let's be honest, everyone pointed to the same guys, the Mossad. Why? Because this is classic Israeli doctrine. Prevent your enemies from getting the bomb by any means necessary. They call it mowing the lawn, as in every time Iran's nuclear program starts growing a little too tall, boom. And it's not just people. In 2010, a computer virus called Stuxnet tore through Iran's Natanz nuclear facility. It wasn't just malware, it was military-grade code. It caused Iranian centrifuges to spin out of control and literally explode. Now, Iran had no idea what was happening for months. Stuxnet was next level. It showed that cyber weapons could do physical damage. No bombs, no boots, just code. Since then, both sides have ramped up digital warfare. Israel's water systems were targeted by hackers. Iranian oil infrastructure suddenly caught fire. Israeli shipping companies got hacked. Iran's metro display boards were hijacked with anti-regime messages. This isn't just petty trolling, it's cyber warfare and it's escalating. Israel calls this the campaign between the wars, a doctrine designed to degrade Iran's capabilities just enough to delay a major war. The goal? Keep pressure high without letting things boil over. But here's the problem, eventually someone does retaliate. And that's exactly what's been happening recently. Now, Iran has started striking back, not just through proxies like Hezbollah, but through its own forces. Drone swarms, ballistic missiles, attacks on Israeli ships, diplomats, even foreign embassies. It's gotten to the point where in 2024, Iran launched a direct strike on Israel, something unheard of just a few years ago. It didn't cause major damage, but the message was crystal clear. We can reach you, and if you keep hitting us, we will hit back. Now let's go back to the numbers. Iran is estimated to have over 3,000 ballistic missiles capable of reaching Israel. In April 2024, Iran launched hundreds of drones and missiles towards Israel, the largest attack of its kind. Over 99% were intercepted, but the psychological line was crossed. And here's where it gets scarier. This war is no longer confined to Iran and Israel. It's regional. Iranian proxies in Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Yemen, they're all within firing range of Israeli targets. Israeli strikes in Damascus, Baghdad, even alleged ops in Tehran itself. Western powers, especially the US and UK, now they're dragged in to intercept missiles and back Israel. And yet, this whole time, neither side has declared war. They're dancing on the edge because once war is official, then it's all in. But why not just stop? Well, it's personal now. Israel feels like its existence is on the line. Iran feels like its revolution is being suffocated, and both regimes use this conflict to justify their policies at home. Israel's leaders point to Iran as the reason for massive defensive spending and unity in a fractured society. Iran's leaders invoke Israel to rally support when domestic protests threaten the regime. So yeah, this shadow war is more than strategy, it's a political tool, it's identity, it's narrative warfare. So now here's the gut punch. This entire conflict is being managed in whispers, backchannels, code names, and midnight airstrikes. And for the average Iranian or Israeli citizen, alright, get ready, because now we're bringing in the world's loudest third wheel. Yeah, the United States. If Iran and Israel are the feuding couple in this 46-year drama, America is the over-involved neighbor who offers advice, then moves into the guest house as the unofficial mediator. So let's talk about it. This isn't just a two-way beef. The US plays a starring role as benefactor, instigator, negotiator, and occasional saboteur in this weird geopolitical love triangle. Once upon a time, yes, again, we're back to the 70s, the US was tight with both Iran and Israel. The Shah of Iran was Washington's golden boy in the Middle East. He bought American weapons like they were going out of style and helped contain the Soviets in the region. Israel was America's Middle Eastern golden retriever, loyal, territorial, and occasionally bringing back dead things nobody asked for. But once Khomeini rolled into Tehran in 1979, everything flipped. The embassy hostage crisis? That wasn't just bad PR, it was a full-on rupture. America cut ties, froze assets, and declared Iran the villain in every international gathering. From that point on, Washington and Tehran didn't just have a bad breakup, they started throwing chairs across the courtroom. So where does Israel fit in? In the center. You see, Israel, always concerned about regional threats, immediately saw opportunity in America's new Iranophobia. Israeli policymakers began pushing a new strategy. Iran is the new Iraq. Throughout the 90s and 2000s, Israel and its allies in DC pushed hard to reveal Iran as a global threat. And after 9/11, jackpot. The Bush administration was suddenly in the business of regime change. Axis of evil speeches, covert ops, you name it. But here's the irony. While the US was preparing to invade Iraq, Iran actually helped. Yes, Iran cooperated with the US in Afghanistan and even offered help in toppling the Taliban. According to internal State Department memos, they proposed a grand bargain. Help us normalize relations and we'll help you stabilize the region. Stop supporting terrorists and be more transparent about nukes. And what did the Bush administration do? Ignored the facts. No, really, they ghosted Iran. Flat out. And from that moment, Iran's supreme leader concluded, negotiating with America is a waste of time. You either have leverage or you get crushed. So they started building that leverage. Missiles, militias, nuclear know-how, the whole package. Then came the Obama era. Cue the hope. In 2015, after 2 years of secret talks, the JCPOA was signed, a real verifiable nuclear deal. Sanctions were lifted, inspectors were in, diplomats were smiling awkwardly for photos, and Israel, furious. Netanyahu bypassed the White House, he addressed Congress, he declared the deal a betrayal. A nuclear Iran is worse than no deal, he said famously. Now, America was trying to perform brain surgery while riding a mechanical bull, balancing Israel's fury, Iran's suspicions, and Congress's tantrums. It worked, barely. In 2018, Trump pulled the US out of the JCPOA and called it the worst deal ever. Sanctions returned, Iran's economy nosedived, and that strategic patience Iran was preaching, gone. By 2022, Iran's uranium stockpile was growing again. Regional militias were more active than ever, and Iranian drones, those slick, cheap ones, started showing up in Ukraine helping Russia. And where was Israel? Cheering Trump's move, because for its security establishment, diplomacy is risky. Sabotage is safer. You don't negotiate existential threats, you eliminate them. Which brings us to now. Iran's nuclear program is more advanced than ever. Israel is weighing full-on strikes, and the US, it's stuck between a rock and a hard place, and a pile of midterm polling data. Some recent numbers to illustrate this mess. In 2023, 66% of Americans supported a diplomatic solution with Iran over a military one, but over 70% of Israelis believed military action was necessary if Iran reached the nuclear threshold. Meanwhile, U.S. military presence in the Middle East has ballooned to over 40,000 troops, much of it to deter Iran and reassure Israel. 3. And here's the kicker. Every time the U.S. tries to mediate peace in the region, Iran makes it harder, and so does Israel, because deep down neither side fully trusts Washington. One sees America as a backstabber, the other as a babysitter that sometimes forgets who's supposed to win. So now we ask the big one, is peace between Iran and Israel even possible? Let's be honest, on paper, it looks grim. One side calls for the other's destruction, the other side assassinates nuclear scientists in broad daylight, missiles are flying, militias are armed, diplomats are either ghosting or gaslighting each other, and every few months a new crisis threatens to spiral into full-on war. But let's think about this. The Middle East is a place where enemies become partners faster than you can say Habibi. Remember, Egypt and Israel were once bitter enemies. Now, they share intelligence. Jordan and Israel fought wars. Now, they trade water and coordinate on border security. Even Saudi Arabia is very cautiously warming up to Israel through the Abraham Accords. So what's stopping Iran? Honestly, a few major things. Firstly, identity politics. Since 1979, Iran's regime has defined itself as anti-Zionist. It's not just a foreign policy, it's foundational. Khomeini's entire pitch was built on resisting imperialism, and Israel became the ultimate symbol of that imperialism to him. If Iran subtly turned around and made peace, it would shatter the ideological bedrock of the Islamic Republic. Number 2, regional power games. Iran doesn't just hate Israel, it competes with it. They both want to influence the Middle East, and in a region where perception is power, being seen as the defender of the Palestinians gives Iran a huge PR edge over rivals like Saudi Arabia or Egypt. And number 3, domestic distraction. The Iranian regime is under massive pressure. Sanctions, economic collapse, protests over women's rights, corruption. It's a pressure cooker. And when things get tense at home, guess what helps? An external enemy. Israel serves as the regime's ultimate scapegoat. Don't protest us, they say. Blame Israel. Classic misdirection used by regimes everywhere. And yet peace isn't as far-fetched as it seems. Let's go back to something we touched on in part 1. Iran and Israel were once allies. Deep allies. Shared intelligence, direct flights, business deals, even mutual respect. That history didn't just vanish. It got buried under politics, revolution, and decades of trauma. And guess what? The people on both sides, they still remember. Today, you'll find Persian Jews in Israel who speak fondly of pre-revolutionary Iran, young Iranians defying the regime by waving Israeli flags during protests, Israeli leaders quietly acknowledging that peace with Iran would be the ultimate security achievement. Even in the Islamic Republic, there are whispers. Former Iranian officials have admitted they once tried to restart dialogue with Israel. They knew cooperation was possible, just politically radioactive. And with the regime facing growing internal dissent, one bold move, a negotiated regional security pact perhaps, could flip that script. But that would take a leadership in Iran willing to pivot or collapse under its own weight. And it would take an Israel ready to think beyond military superiority and consider long-term regional integration. And a U.S. foreign policy that doesn't just pick sides, but actually brokers sustainable regional solutions. Now let's be clear, none of this is easy. But history shows that today's enemies can be tomorrow's trading partners. If Egypt and Israel can do it, if Saudi Arabia and Iran, yes, Iran, can reopen embassies after years of tension, then maybe, just maybe, Iran and Israel can pull back from the brink. Because here's the harder truth. Another war won't solve this. If Israel bombs Iran's nuclear sites tomorrow, it might delay the program, but it'll also unite Iranians around the regime. If Iran lashes out again, it invites a multi-front war it's not ready to win. It's a cycle, and at some point, someone has to break it. So what's the takeaway? Maybe it's this. Iran doesn't hate Israel because of ancient religious texts, and Israel doesn't fear Iran because of irrational hate. This is about power, identity, survival. But underneath all of that, beneath the missiles and headlines, are two peoples with more in common than they want to admit. People with shared history, shared trauma, even shared music. Go listen to some Persian pop in a Tel Aviv CD shop. It's still there. Which means maybe, just maybe, it can end with courage and common sense. But until then, the shadow war continues. And history is funny like that. One handshake, one secret meeting, one bold leader, and the unthinkable becomes reality. So here's to that possibility. The 46-year war doesn't have to be a 100-year one. You're still watching. You're the kind of person who doesn't hit snooze on history. So hit subscribe. We dive deep every week. And if you want the full picture, the next chapter is right here. Just click to continue the story.